Okay, hi everybody, welcome to Musical Orbit's webinar, Meet the Students of the Junior Royal Academy of Music in London. And it's not just the students that are joining us today, we have Howard Ionascu, who is the musical director. We also have Brian McCanny-Mason, who is a violin student, and Zoe Perkins, who's a trumpeter. Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. So first of all, let's start hearing about your personal time at the Academy. Zoe, could we start with you? How long have you been studying there?
Since February 2013, so nearly 3 years.
Okay, so a bit of a veteran. And you come every Saturday morning, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what time do you have to get up to get there?
Well, I get up at about 5:30, and I have to drive to the station, then get a train, and I get in for 9:15, which is my first class.
Gosh, you're dedicated. Very good. Brian, you also get up quite early, don't you?
Yeah, at 5 o'clock on a Saturday, yeah.
And so how long is your day when you're there?
So my first lesson is my violin lesson, which starts at 10. And my last lesson is orchestra, which ends at 3 o'clock.
We have to admit something here. Brimer is actually my student. He works very hard and I'm very proud of him. Well done. How long have you been coming here then?
This is my 7th year at the Academy.
And you've got brothers and sisters here as well?
Yeah, so I have 4 brothers and sisters also at the Junior Academy as well.
Great, lovely. Now, Howard, you run the whole place, which must be spectacularly complicated. Can you tell us a bit about the audition process? When are the auditions, for starters?
The applications open in January. Fill in a form, send in the form, gives us details about your first study, your second study, what you'll be auditioning on. And then we give you details about what we'd like to hear. So you'll come in, we provide an accompanist if you need an accompanist. You've got a little bit of time to rehearse with them. And then you'll come in performing 2 contrasting pieces on your first study. Then perhaps something on your second study, if you have one, and it's not a problem if you don't. And we'll do some sight reading tests or a quick study, some oral tests. The oral tests, we don't tell you we don't have a syllabus for the oral tests. We deliberately do that because we want to test your innate oral skills as opposed to anything that's been taught. So that they're very simple. They're not dissimilar to the ABRSM style of oral tests. And then, importantly, at the end, we leave about 5 to 10 minutes to have a chat and to find out a bit more about your musical interests, what your aspirations, where you want to go, where you're thinking about after school age, those sort of things. And once we've done that, we put it all into the mix and make the decisions and let you know as soon as possible.
Brilliant. We got a question here from Daisy, who says, probably not a question for Howard, a question for Zoe maybe. She says, is the audition process scary? What did you think when you did yours?
Well, I admit I was quite scared when I kind of first applied to audition because obviously you think it's going to be this really, well, it is this really big thing, but when I got in there, I realised sort of how friendly it was, and I don't know, kind of when I walked into the academy, it just had a really friendly vibe, and so I wasn't scared when I walked in there. It's quite informal and it's really relaxed, so yeah.
Great. And Howard, you were saying about second studies. A lot of people play a second instrument, but those who don't and they get in, do they then need to learn a second instrument? Is that
no? They can. There's no compulsion to learn a second study. It's interesting. We had new students in yesterday for September, and we were talking about this. And I was saying, there are certain things that are clearly an advantage, particularly if you want to go on to be a professional musician. And I don't think anyone would argue about the piano, that there really is great merit in being a proficient pianist. You don't need to be a whiz, but there is something, and Brian and Zoe, I'm sure you'd agree with this, that actually being able to sit down and just get through your accompaniments for your instrumental pieces is a real advantage. It gives you a much greater understanding of the music. So I'm a big fan of second study piano, but it doesn't have to be there. It doesn't have to be learnt at the academy. It can be learnt outside privately.
Stevie is asking, are there accompanists at the academy that you can practice with? Howard, I think that's one for you.
Yeah, we do. We have, on Saturdays, we have 3 staff accompanists who, during the week, I produce a schedule. So if Bryma, for example, was going into a performance platform, an accompanist would magically appear during the lesson, come in, sit down, they'd know in advance what the repertoire was. And I think, Bryma, I mean, your experience of accompanists, I mean, there are three accompanists generally, and they're all quite different, aren't they?
Yeah, but they're all amazing. I don't know how they're able to sight read all this music, and they listen so well, and it's a really good thing at the Academy.
It is impressive, isn't it? The way they just walk in, sit down and go, what's this? Oh, okay. And off they go. In fact, so I studied at the Senior Academy many years ago, and they were actually, many of them were there with me. So that's rather nice for us to see a bit of the Academy family, sort of grandparents maybe now we are, I don't know, coming through. Lovely. Anyway, we got a question now from Hardeep who says, do you get to play in orchestra? Perhaps, Bryma, you could tell us about the orchestra situation.
Yeah, so there are two different orchestras, I think. So there's symphony orchestra, and then there's sinfonietta, and then I think it depends on your age and what level you are. They put you in an orchestra, and you play a different set of pieces each term.
And are there concerts that happen every term?
Yeah, there are concerts every term, yeah.
And what sort of repertoire have you covered recently?
So last year we played Shostakovich Symphony No. 5, the whole thing. And at the moment, on the 4th of July, we're playing Copland Symphony No. 3, which is very exciting.
That's a fanfare for the common man, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so will you be playing fanfare for the common man then in Copland 3?
Well, yeah, it's the start of the fourth movement. So yeah.
You'll be in that concert though, will you? Very good. Where will that concert be? Will that be at the Academy?
Yeah. It's all, yeah.
Lovely. 4th of July. Come along to that. Great. Daisy is asking again, how young can you be to go to the Junior Academy? Now, this is a question for you, I think. There's actually two parts, aren't there, to the Junior Academy?
Yeah. Bryma, I think I'm right in saying that you were at primary before Junior?
Yeah.
So the Junior Academy is the main 12 to 18 year olds, 12 to 18 year olds, which basically equates to secondary school. So year 7, year 8, going up to year 13. And at any point you can audition to join the Junior Academy, except when you get right to the top, what we like is a minimum of 2 years. So your last chance saloon, if you like, is during year 11 to audition. So we do have quite a few come in for sixth form age.
Yeah.
Below that, we have something called Primary Academy, which is a smaller version, literally in terms of height of the students, but also in terms of what they do. So they'll do just an afternoon, but very much modelled on the Junior Academy, and that is primary because it's primary school age. So again, auditions, it doesn't give you an automatic entrance into Junior Academy. You have to re-audition at the end of Primary Academy with everyone else. But it is a fantastic half day of again, instrumental lessons, general musicianship, chamber music, orchestra, choir.
And you fit all that into an afternoon. It's impressive.
Yes, yeah. So the sessions are actually longer. So Bryma and Zoe have symphony orchestra, which starts at 1:15 and goes through to 3 o'clock. There's a good sized rehearsal. Primary Symphonia, the next one down, would have a slightly shorter rehearsal. The classical orchestra, which is our sort of first training orchestra in the Junior Academy, has an hour. So the idea is that as they get older, attention span increases, so therefore the rehearsal can increase.
Right, and you talk about re-auditioning to get into the junior department. How does it go if you go in at 11 and you leave at 18? Are you assessed as you go along? Is there any point where you could get, God forbid, thrown out, or how does it work?
Yeah, so this year I will have assessed these two. I can remember them both very well. They come into a room and they perform a piece that they prepared with an accompanist. And then, again, importantly, we sit down and we have a chat. I mean, I don't know, Bryma, did you want to say a bit about your assessment? For me, from my side, I have to say it's not really about ticking to get back in for the next year. It's very, very rare that I either reassess or we think it's right for someone not to return in the following year. And actually, the assessment is not the time when I'll find that out. The assessment, I'll be sensing that something's not quite right for a long time before that. But I have to stress, it's very, very rare. Most of the time, the assessment is about how they're doing and what they want to be doing in the next year. Does that sound fair, Brian?
Yeah, I think the best thing about the assessment is it's an opportunity to say any concerns that you might have with any lessons, or also advice about what you might want to do when you go away for university or music college and that kind of thing. Just useful to just get advice and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Zoe, question for you. Hardeep's asking, what professional musicians come in to help you at the Junior Academy? And I was thinking possibly about this Copeland concert that's coming up. Who's helping? Are there people taking sectionals, or who's conducting?
Well, we have our usual conductor, Howard Williams, but we have a guest soloist, Thomas Gold, coming in to do the, I think it's the Ravel Violin Concerto. So that should be really good. It'll be really interesting to see him play. And we have our normal tutors kind of tutoring our sectionals and things. But we also...
Sorry, they are teachers from the Junior Academy, are they? The people that...
Yeah, we have, to help the brass sectionals, we have a trombone tutor, Dave. Yeah, so he's like our regular tutor. He's really good. Yeah.
Friendly, fun.
Yeah, he's very kind of laid back, but kind of down to business at the same time.
Now, can you tell us, Zoe, about chamber music? Did you get to choose who you play chamber music with, or are you told? Got to be him.
Well, so we have brass ensemble, which takes place at 10 a.m. every Saturday morning, and it goes on for 45 minutes, and we just do sort of standard brass dectet repertoire with Steve Wick, who's the tuba tutor at the Academy. And there's also a brass quintet as well, which, I mean, I'm not in because my lesson's at the same time as that, but yeah, so it's mostly just quintets, quartets and dectets, really.
And Brian, what's the string situation like for chamber music?
It's mostly piano trios, piano quintets, string quartets, and you stay with the chamber group for the whole year in Junior Academy. And in Primary Academy, you change once a term. And
can you ask to be with your friends?
You can ask, but obviously it's quite hard to arrange everyone so they're with their friends. But if you ask them, they'll do their best to make sure that you're in a group that you want to be in.
And that's Howard's unenviable job, trying to timetable that. I think
they're both being terribly diplomatic, but at the end of the day, it is basically my decision, along with my colleagues. We put a lot of thinking time into chamber music. The students might not necessarily realise how much thinking time we put into it, but we do think very hard about parity, so that we've got students playing with students who we feel are of a similar standard. That's really important. I'm sure there's lots of people watching this who will know that feeling of either being in a group where they feel they're not up to the standard, or the other way around, where they feel that they're coasting a little bit. And that's what we try and avoid. We try and get to groups that all feel that they're pretty evenly matched. By and large, that's done on an age group, because that's how, generally how it works, but not always. And I think, going back to Zoe's point about the brass, it's an interesting one. There's no doubt we have more string players. The way we actually have our quotas at Junior Academy is to look at our 2 symphony orchestras and fill those symphony orchestras. And as we know, we need more string players than wind and brass. So it's a very simple system for us of, if we need 4 flautists for symphony orchestra and 4 for symphonia, essentially our quota of flautists is 8. And then we wrap the chamber music around it. With the brass, we are looking now to expand our brass department. We think it's the time to do it. With some exciting changes at the Academy coming online in the next year or so, in terms of our room spaces, we think we can do this. So next year we have 2 brass quintets, and I can announce live on this webinar, Zoe, that you will be in a brass quintet next year.
Okay.
Breaking news. Good stuff, Howard. And in fact, we were talking about earlier about the audition process, and how they tend to be around April. But certain instruments, of course, tend to be harder to fill than others. You know, there's always a million violinists, aren't there, Brian? We're in good company. But certain instruments may one year, there may not be enough of them. So is it always worth writing in to apply, even if you've missed the deadline?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we think it's important to hold to an audition period, because especially when you have a lot of one instrument, it's so important to hear them almost back to back, to be able to make comparisons and to see where we feel we can properly invest in a student, or where we feel that perhaps the junior academy isn't the right place at this stage, possibly for them. But for other instruments, certain instruments where there are less people applying, there is always the option of a late, or which either side, early audition at any time during the year. So my advice is, regardless of instruments, if you're interested and you think you don't want to wait until the following April, just send an email into Junior Academy and we'll see what we can do.
Great, lovely. Now then, can you choose your teacher, asks Daisy. Howard, can you?
You can certainly ask. Brian and Zoe, in their assessments, one of the questions I would always ask is in fact it's always the first question, how's your first study lesson going? Because actually the first study, that instrumental lesson stands at the heart, it's at the heart of the timetable. It should be the most important part of the day. Everything else is very important, but that one-on-one is the essence really of why you're at Junior Academy. And therefore it has to be right. It has to be the right teacher. So again, a bit like chamber music, a great deal of thought is given to allocations. I'm doing them this week actually for the new students. And already in my head, I've got whizzing round, I think so-and-so will work very well with so-and-so. And there'll be a lot of reasons for that. They won't all be musical. There'll be some social and some personal reasons that I think that one, intellectual reasons why that person will fit. Don't always get it right. I'd say 98% of the time we get it right. And if we don't get it right, then we don't just let it go on and suffer. We change. But if a new student or a returning student wants to change teacher, then in the assessment, that's their moment. And we look at, and again, I just assess whether it is the right time. For example, someone's been with their current teacher for a very long time. Often it's current teacher who says, I think you're ready to change. And that can be a very hard thing to do. I'm sure when, Zoe, when you had left your last trumpet teacher when you came to Junior Academy, that was probably not an easy transition. It's often a very, very difficult one and full of emotion, because you've built up this wonderful rapport. I was talking to our new students yesterday about this. It's hard, but that's not a reason not to do it. If it's the right time, then it's time to move on, and you'll never forget that first teacher. They were the foundation of your music education. So they're always going to be part of your education, and I know that they look on with great pride.
Yeah. Now, Bryma and Zoe are both quite senior members of the Junior Royal Academy of Music. But guys, David's asking, how much practice do you do a day? So obviously you're not beginners, so beginners need to build up their stamina and their concentration. But Zoe, be honest, how much do you do a day?
Well, I aim to do 4 hours a day of practice, which is usually for a brass player. It's you really have to think about and this is the same for any instrument, but especially because of our lip muscles, we really have to make what we're doing worthwhile. So a lot of brass players usually do about 2 hours a day. But it really depends on how much stamina you have. But I find it's easier to do more practice, because then I can do certain things in more detail. Like I'd probably spend about 2 hours on exercises each day, 2 to 3 hours, could have like tone drills and tonguing exercises and things like that, just to keep technique and things. And then I'd spend about an hour working on pieces, say for like upcoming competitions or like assessments or exams. things like that.
I'm impressed. That is a lot for brass player, because stamina is a real issue there, isn't it? And so when in your day do you fit that in? Because I presume, have school as well.
Yeah. I mean, well, it does get tricky when I go back to school, but if I was at school, I would probably do it before I go to school, or I would, because I have 3 periods in the morning, because I chose to do 3 subjects so I could sort of focus on music more. So I do it like probably about 1 hour in the morning, 1 hours in the morning, and then when I get home, I do 1 hour, and then I do like homework or something, and then after I'd eaten, I do another hour, then go to bed probably. Yeah.
Popular with the neighbours that last hour, I'm sure.
I think they're used to it now.
And Brimer, yeah, you can live necessarily, seeing as you're my student. How much practice are you doing?
I do on average 3 hours a day, and a quarter of that is on scales and studies, and then the rest will be on pieces.
Very good. Correct answer. Well done.
I think there's something, a prospective student, a new student, asked me yesterday, how much, is there a set amount of practice time? And I think actually, with practice, think about it the other way around. You'll soon know if you're not doing enough practice, because it will become very apparent in your lessons. You and probably your teacher will become frustrated. You'll become very apparent in chamber music if you're falling behind others. It'll become very apparent and very, very public to everyone in orchestra, if particularly for principal wind players, if things are not where they should be. So I don't necessarily think about how much time you're doing, but rather, are you doing enough to satisfy yourself and others around you? And if the answer to that is no, then probably it means you need to do more practice. I think that's probably the better way around to think of it.
I think we should also emphasise that Zoe and Brimer are both at the very top level, and I think, are you both intending to go to music college in a couple of years' time? Yeah, so they're really at the peak of their game. Well, peak at this point in their life anyway. I imagine at the primary academy you wouldn't be expected to do 3 hours a day. So
No.
Yeah, and it's a question of building up your stamina as well, of course. So Daisy's asking, does it happen? Does Junior Academy happen in the holidays? Howard, could you tell?
No. 11 weeks a term. It follows basically school term. You have a week off for half term. 3 terms, 11 weeks in each term. Always finish the end of terms with big concerts in the Duke's Hall. No, so we don't study in the holidays, and actually the summer holidays is a nice big one because we don't start until the end of September. And I'm a big believer in holidays. People need them for 2 reasons. They need some downtime because with Junior Academy is fun, as Zoe said, and it actually is quite a relaxed atmosphere inside the building, but it is also very demanding, very purposeful, challenging, and tiring. I don't know about you two, but Saturday nights I sleep very well on Saturday nights. But so therefore you do need time away. There's also another very good reason why we need the holidays, because a lot of our students will go off and do other things, other music courses. So, chamber music courses in the summer, orchestra courses in all the holidays. And this is a very important part of their musical education, going off to play with other orchestras and other musicians.
Can you tell us, Brimer, a little bit about the social side? I know you have a very packed timetable, but when I walk through past the David Josefovich Hall, I see you all having a good old chat. Is it a nice feeling? Is it a family feeling there?
Yeah, I think the best thing about the academy, obviously, apart from all the great teachers, is you're constantly surrounded by other people who have the same interest in music as you do. So it's just being surrounded by musicians all the time, and it's great. I think that side of it.
And how did you feel, Zoe, when you came to the academy 3 years ago? Did it feel like that for you as well, that you sort of finally found your group of people?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, because my school, it has a really dedicated music department, but there aren't many musicians. So when I came to academy, I was really kind of surprised at how quickly I made friends, and I don't know, it's just really refreshing to actually talk to someone that really, really cares about music, like the same as I do. It's really nice, and you just have so much to talk about, and yeah, it's lovely.
It's one thing I noticed over the last few weeks is, of course, they've all been talking about their exams and comparing notes. And I think sometimes getting each other a little bit stressed out by talking about exams, but actually much more importantly, they've been able to sort of console each other and talk and how did that AS go? How did that paper go? And that's a really nice side. So that's the school side, if you like, but there's also the musical side.
Lovely. We're just running out of time now, but perhaps we could have just one final sentence from all of you. What would you say to somebody who is thinking of coming to the Junior Academy? Howard, what would you say? I
think one thing you're very, very welcome to do is come and have a look around. Any Saturday, email us in advance. You've been most welcome. 3:45 is a magic time for us every week because there's always a performance, a masterclass, a concert going on. So 3:45 is a great time. You're very welcome. Just email in advance so we know you're coming. But there's no better way of getting an idea of Junior Academy than coming and having a look. Zoe, what would you say to somebody thinking of coming?
I'd say just apply, because I mean it's great experience. Like even if you just audition, it's still really great experience and you really won't regret it. So definitely apply.
Brymer, do you agree?
Yeah, you should definitely come to the academy, because it doesn't just help with your music, it also helps manage your time and helps you work hard as well with anything that you want to do in the future.
Thank you so much, everybody. Good luck, Brymer and Zoe, with any auditions that may be coming up in the future. And thank you, Howard, as well. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Goodbye, everyone.
Our little friends are flying through the galaxy.